Let's get real, man. You didn't reconnect with Randy. You only said that to make yourself look good. You made that story up. You made that lie up so you could make yourself look good and get the media's attention that you reconnected with Randy. I mean, by your own account, man. You just recently reconnected with a friend you hadn't spoken to in 10 years. 10 years there was silence between you and Randy. And you go on that sit-down interview show and you throw Randy under the bus in the hateful, vile way that you did? What's wrong with you, man? What kind of human being are you? I mean, the things that have real value mean nothing to you and your life. I mean, to alleviate the heat, some of the heat from that, you're going to say, well, Randy hadn't had his accident when I sat down to do the interview. That makes you even more of a scumbag. I mean, you hadn't talked to your friend in 10 years. You put on this face like you're glad to reconnect. You're glad you got your friend back in your life. And then you go on then, or you sit down and you make a conscious decision to trash his personal life in the way that you did. I mean, by your own words, it's some events that have happened since Randy's passing. The words that you used and the stories you told, they prove that you didn't reconnect with Randy. You crossed paths with him about a year ago in a hospital and had a few words with him. He invited you to a barbecue, maybe a step toward reconnecting, but you bashed him and mocked him in another one of those Hulk and Friend, silly-ass Hulk and Friend tour things that you did. You mocked and ridiculed him for inviting you to a barbecue. It was below you to go to a barbecue. You know what happened? Randy was at the hospital, probably doing charity work. She did a lot of charity work. You know, you bash him in that sit-down interview that he's a hermit, that he stayed out of the public eye. You know that he took care of his dad for the last 3 or 4 years of his life, man? Randy was probably at the hospital doing charity work, heard that you were there. Instead of being a coward and running the opposite direction like you would have done, he stepped in the room and he said hello like a man. And you sit on that show and you laugh and giggle and you make jokes about him and Elizabeth's marriage falling apart. You know, let me be clear. Randy was a man. He got over his marriage, or the marriage that he had with Elizabeth, and that it fell apart. He moved on. That's the kind of person and man he was. When he decided to give his life to another person in his life, be married to them, he was all there. His whole heart was there. There's no question about that. And a lot of people are talking about Randy being married to Elizabeth, that he's going to meet Elizabeth. Yeah, that's like background noise that people are going to make because of what they remember from those times. But Randy's entire soul, mind, and heart was into the woman that he had chosen to be his wife now, not then, and Elizabeth. But you make fun of the whole thing. I was there, Terry, I know. You and Linda contributed to the fallout of their marriage. Randy was on the road, touring around with me night after night. You were shooting some movie in Florida or something like that, and you and Linda got in Elizabeth's ear that she needed to get out more, go do things on her own. You kept pressuring her, and it finally happened. And that was the beginning of the end. I mean, if Randy and Elizabeth, or Elizabeth had problems with Randy and that he was too possessive or whatever, then who were you? Who were you and Linda to think you were the capable counselors of setting everything afire? If they had problems in their marriage, let them arise on their own. There was no reason for you to stick their nose in their business. You did it because it's all part of the work. I have stories about how people receive things. That's how the game works. And that's how it works with Vince too. And whether you taught him or he taught you, man, part of this strategy back then was to make sure that the personal lives of talent were in constant chaos. Constant chaos, and keep them on the road. I mean, you sit there and you smirk that Randy was protective of his wife in the wrestling business backstage. I mean, the backstage environment is like a zoo. Hallways are set up as dressing rooms. You see guys half undressed, totally undressed, going to the shower in a towel or still in their underwear or their trunks. And Randy was being a stand-up husband, and you think that's something to make fun of? His wife, I mean, Elizabeth was one of the only women at the time that was in the backstage area. And I got to tell you, man, I've never met a group of males with greater tendency toward adultery, promiscuity, and even sexual perversion. But you think it's all funny? That Randy behaved the way that he did, that he was protective of the wife that he loved? Well, of course you would. I mean, you didn't care if your wife slept with other guys. I guess by your standard, you think that Elizabeth ended up better off, right? I mean, by the end, she was, throwing back shots of whiskey and popping pills for breakfast, sitting across from Luger, who's eating his own bowl of steroids and other gimmicks. That was a better life. I mean, she's a literal skeleton in the ground now, but that's all the better for you because that's one less skeleton that come out of your closet. Right, Terry? You ended up sleeping with one of your daughter's friends. Your wife, I guess, that was one of those thrills on the side that Linda just couldn't handle. Your wife, she ends up betting the 17-year-old classmate of your daughter, the guy went to school with your daughter, who weirdly looks like a young version of you. And you end up marrying a girl who either looks like Linda when she was young or looks like Brooke now. I mean, you've confessed a lot of things in the last few years, but you're not confessing anything on that. It's just all too much. And the thing is, all this silliness, what it really does is point to how seriously you have some mental issues, man. I mean, you're just not right in the head. You can't handle reality. And you are a pathological liar.